I'm just telling you folks that size matters, okay? When it comes to valuation of real estate, it's a big factor. Maybe it's not the next big factor next to location. I don't know. But to me, it's a big deal.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast.
Minisode.
It's an age-old question. Does size matter? I'll tell you what does matter, and that is what you're using or not using, as the case may be, to your appraisal business, to manage, to find out what's going on, to keep track of, to make decisions as a business owner. Anow Software is where I put my money, and that's where you should be looking as well. Anow.com/coach is where you go to find out more. Again, one more time, it's Anow.com/coach. Well, folks, next to location, and I know there's exceptions to this. I certainly understand that, but in general, next to location, probably the next biggest factor in valuation in a lot of the areas that I cover is size. Now, again, I understand, and I know the age-old, well, just look at the grid. If you go from the grid and you look at the top, the first thing that matters is the sales price when it comes to comparables. And then it's about the concessions, and then it's about, and on down the road, right? And size, GLA is kind of in the middle. I get that. I understand that. I'm just telling you folks that size matters, okay? When it comes to valuation of real estate, it's a big factor. Maybe it's not the next big factor next to location. I don't know. But to me, it's a big deal, at least in the areas that I cover. So my question is, how much time, how much effort, how much detail do you go into when it comes to size? And what I mean by that is, I know there's a lot of desktop reports out there. There's a lot of drive-bys out there. But I don't know about you, and I still am doing a great deal of full appraisals. And when I say full appraisals, I'm talking 1004s, I'm talking 1025s, I'm talking GPARs. I'm talking about when we are actually going out on site and we're walking through the property and we are measuring the property. We are sketching the property. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Let's talk about size for just a little bit. But first of all, I want to pause and remind you that we are sponsored on this minisode by Anow. But I'll tell you, folks, Anow matters. Anow matters. Why? Because it makes all the difference. I know people are going to say, you know what, Dustin, it's a spreadsheet. And I'm not going to pay for a spreadsheet. There's too many free spreadsheets out there. I've already got Excel. I've got free Google Sheets, right? I can keep track of my appraisals. Folks, trust me, I did that for a long time too, right? And by the way, Anow was not the first company that came to me and says, hey, you need to use my software. Now, Anow was the first company that actually convinced me that I really did need to use their software. And I've been an avid fan ever since. Why? Because, folks, it's more than just the spreadsheet. I cannot even start to tell you the tools that are in Anow. The mapping, the scheduling, the calendaring, the contact information, the ability to recall or bring that up on your mobile device while you're in the field, to be able to call the contact directly from your phone in the app, right? I mean, all of these things will make your life easier, but what is more important is the ability to be able to manage your appraisal office and know what your numbers are. You can with Anow software. Go to anow.com/coach. Again, it's anow.com/coach. Folks, today we're talking about size. We're talking about, does size matter? I believe size matters, right? But maybe not in the same way that the general public understands it. For example, now I know a lot of you don't work areas that have basements, but I do. A lot of the areas that I work have basements. A lot of the homes in those areas have basements. In fact, it's well over 50%. It's probably closer to 80%. Of the homes. I don't even know if that's an accurate statistics, but of course, 95% of all statistics are made up on site anyway. So we're going to go with 80%. 80% of the areas that I work have basements. The houses in those areas that I work have basements, right? There's a big difference between above grade square footage and below grade square footage. And when I mean a big difference, I'm talking about value. And I've looked at it and I've crunched the numbers and I've gone through the regression analysis and I've compared. And I'm telling you folks, and homeowners don't like to hear it, right? They don't like to hear it because to them it costs just as much to finish the basement as it did the upstairs. So why should it be worth any less? And I'm telling you, it is. It is because of perception, because of perceived value from the potential homeowner. And they just pay less per square footage. If you got 1,200 square foot above with a full 1,200 square foot basement, even if it's 100% finished, the above grade square footage is going to be at a much higher level. When I say much higher, sometimes twice as much than the basement. It just is what it is. All right, let's talk about second stories. What about a finished attic? Right? You always know that they don't always necessarily go into gross living area. You understand that there is a difference in, say, a finished attic and maybe a full second story. Is that the same as the main level? In some areas, yes. In some areas, maybe not. Some things do depend on the ceiling height, the slopes, the finish. Is it heated? Those things have to be considered as well. What about mother-in-law suites? Are they duplexes? Can they be accessed from the inside of the home? These are all questions that an appraiser should be asking. And more importantly, the appraiser should be asking, does it make a difference in value? If it does, it's something that you need to consider. Don't forget about over improvements. There's a reason that your clients sometimes come back and say, is the subject an over improvement for the area? Even though you may have generically address that in your report, they want something specific. Why? Because you don't want to have the biggest home in the neighborhood. Again, why? Well, there's a lot of reasons why. Let's talk maintenance, for example, right? Utility costs. The larger the home, typically the more expensive it is to maintain, to keep it heated, to keep it cooled, to replace the roof if you need to, right? You also are dealing with this thing called the law of diminishing returns. Square footage means more at the bottom than it does at the top. The more square footage, the more GLA that you get, the less important per square foot that is, the law of diminishing returns. Let me tell you a true story. I appraise a little town called Dubois, Idaho. It's what it sounds like. It's in the middle of, and no, it's not Dubois. If you're from Idaho, you would know that. It's Dubois. And it's just a little tiny town, less than 500 people. And in that town, there was an old church, an old LDS church, a Latter-day Saint church that was converted to living area several years ago. And it was in rough shape, yes, but it wasn't in deplorable shape. It was probably C4, maybe C5. I actually did not walk through it, but based on the online pictures that I saw. And it was about 9,000 square foot, okay? Now, this is in an area where 1,500 square foot's the norm for a home, okay? 9,000 versus 1,500. The average Joe would say, well, obviously it's worth more because it's 9,000 square foot as compared to a small house of 1,500, right? Well, yeah, this church, sold for $25,000. That was, by the way, much less than the going rate per square footage in the area. Why? Well, again, the law of diminishing returns, the maintenance cost, the utility cost. Does anybody really need that big of a house, right? And consequently, it's sold for very, very little. So if you're thinking about an addition as a homeowner, you're teaching your homeowners as you're walking through what they should or should not do, just tell them to pay attention to their neighbors. Don't overbuild. If you've got the biggest home in the neighborhood, it may not necessarily bring you the best value. I'll tell you what will bring you the best value in everything that I do, including one-on-one coaching, I believe, is the mastermind, the dream team. Now, why is that? Wouldn't it be more beneficial to do some coaching with me one-on-one? Well, maybe, but here's the thing. When you're in the mastermind, you're in with a family, a group. You are surrounded by other successful appraisers who have all flown in from various cities to all meet together and work on what? Your business. That's right. You've got 6 or 7 or 8 other people in the room, myself included, who are working on your business. You're asking questions. You're sharing with them your challenges, your pitfalls, your goals, your visions, and they're all there to help you. We've got a couple seats open, folks. Please join us. We're in DC, Chicago, Salt Lake, Dallas, and 2 in Vegas. Love to have you. Again, it's the Dream Team. Go to theappraisercoach.com or just shoot me an email, thecoach@theappraisercoach.com.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.